Big news broke yesterday that Texas and OU are headed to the SEC. A lot of rumors and misinformation flying around, so I asked Eric Nalin, owner of Inside Texas, to stop by and give us the real information. So make sure to go sign up at Inside Texas so you can track this story in real time. Also, don't forget to pick up your hat for the new season from Last Stand Hats. Use promo code TexasHomer, all caps, for 10% off your hat purchase today at laststandhats.com. Please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so I can keep bringing you bigger and better Texas Longhorns content. So no time to waste. Let's get the scoop on Texas and OU joining the SEC. So without further ado, let's get into it. Eric, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on to let us know what's actually happening behind the scenes.
Hey, thanks for having me, buddy. Interesting times. You've picked a great time to start a YouTube channel.
It looks like it, man. So the news comes out yesterday and shocks the Twitterverse, including myself. So when did Inside Texas first get wind of this as a real possibility?
We first heard about this earlier in July when we were checking up on some other things that are going to be big too down the road. When you first hear it, you're shocked. You don't believe it. You're like, nah, there's no way this happens. And then you start thinking about the guys that are involved and, go back to when Sark was announced as head coach. I even quipped at the time that these look like SEC guys. Like they just want to get it done. They just want to play football. They don't care about anything else. That's what I wrote about, yesterday, that these guys are just like you, the fan at home, where they want to dig it to the Big 12 and they want to play the best competition. So we first heard early in the month, had to sit on it because, pretty much anybody that knew on the Texas side had to sit on it because that's where the risk involved with the deal is. A&M on the other side doesn't have that same risk. In fact, they're on the other side of it. They don't want it to happen at all. And that's why it coincidentally leaked, not coincidentally, but it leaked during SEC media days through an A&M friendly medium,
So A&M catches wind and tries to blow it up and make the process harder on OU and Texas. So do you think A&M will succeed in their efforts to mess up the deal?
Yeah, I've told my readers to go by whatever Alabama wants is what's going to happen in the SEC. Does A&M want to blow it up? Of course they do. I mean, they never wanted to play Texas again. Texas had made overtures to play them in non-conference games, and of course they've rebuffed those. It's all out there for everybody to see. A&M doesn't want to play Texas. They have probably the greatest sense of false bravado out there in college football. It's striking to see, actually. On one hand, they're the greatest school of all time. On the other hand, they can't play the actual best in-state school of all time, as the records show. But yeah, I don't think that they can do anything. In fact, I think by the time it got to me, it was probably too late for them to even try. But, the media push is definitely a last-ditch effort. I don't think that they're even trying to curry favor with SEC schools because they know that won't work. I think they're trying to blow it up within the in-state legal process with all the other in-state schools, and Baylor and TCU, they're private schools, so they're not necessarily the same. But political pressure makes things tough, and Baylor has like 57 border regents that can make calls. But I don't think that's going to have any influence on this. I've been outlining how these guys are wired on Inside Texas. Kevin Eltife, Jay Hartzell, Chris Del Conte. They're political actors in a political realm. I don't think that they're going to rebuff any pressure regarding this.
Yeah, these guys know how to move in the political landscape. This is nothing new to them. So what is occurring between Texas and the Big 12? Why is that relationship becoming shaky?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Big 12 is dead. Billy Martin's coming out of his grave to kick dirt on it. So RIP. This stems from a couple of things. OU propping it up on the field and Big 12 propping it up in the banking accounts. Neither school wants to do that long term. And so that's why you're seeing this. And those two schools are in league 100%. They're in lockstep. We've been writing about this, that if a move is made, that Texas and OU are going to go together. And it makes sense. The rest of Paul Wadlington, who you're going to have on the show in a couple of weeks, brilliant writer. He made the point, where else are these guys going to go? Where are the other schools going to go? And when you really take a second to look at that, you realize, sorry, we're close to an airport. You realize that it really is a terrible conference. Kansas can go elsewhere. Kansas is the doormat in football, but they can go elsewhere because of basketball. So, I mean, it just really is a terrible conference. The makeup of it in every way, demographics, the schools involved, the destinations as far as the eyeballs as far as TV goes. There's just not a lot of money involved, and I hate that money does make the world go round, or do I? But it's just a bad situation for Texas. It's not sustainable long term, especially heading into the new world where NIL is a big deal. So it's time to make a big move to the SEC.
It's a new world. And traditionally, when Texas was exploring the Pac 12, academics were the leading focus. So, what changed process wise for Texas? Why are we making moves we wouldn't have 10 years ago? Are the new leaders just looking to actually, compete at the highest level now?
Instead of the decision makers is that at Texas you can have it all. You can have great academics and you can win on the football field. Previously to me it seemed like the powers that be were more interested in academics, and that's why we would hear moves to the Pac-12 was much more likely. And they got a couple of their previous presidents from Cal, great school, not so great football. During COVID, they showed that maybe they didn't care about athletics nearly as much as some other schools. So I think that's when the Pac-12 dream died, along with Greg Fenves leaving. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting academics. In fact, every football coach I've ever come across wants that as a selling point for a school. It helps on the recruiting trail. What I've never really understood is it doesn't seem like academics care much about athletics, and there is a corollary to better athletics impacting enrollment in a positive way. So coaches want great academics. Obviously, it's a selling point. I don't see athletics necessarily wanting great athletics when they should. Really, it does boost interest in their school and their programs and all that. You start getting the Hayden Connors really paying attention. So I think these guys understand that you can have it both, and at Texas you should demand both. Texas is sending off guys to the NFL. It should be sending off guys to postgraduate degrees in the Ivy Leagues and all these other great schools. So it should be a finishing school for NFL players and for nerds.
I agree. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Do you think Sarkisian knew about this as a possible move prior to being hired?
Yeah, as far as whether or not they hired Steve Sarkisian with the move to the SEC in mind, in the last couple of weeks, I've definitely been thinking about that. I think it's more likely than not. I think they've been using the SEC to their advantage behind the scenes already, in some recruitments, even some recruitments where they're all hands on deck. So the way these guys operate, I tend to think that they did have Sarkisian in mind with going to the SEC, but I don't know that for sure. I haven't confirmed it.
Cool. And then we hear from naysayers that Texas and OU inquired about the SEC, but the SEC hasn't shown interest back. So my question is the SEC showing returned interest in Texas and OU joining up?
Yeah, and any notion that Texas and OU are begging their way into the SEC is pretty farcical. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's like showing up and saying you're not sure if you're going to let somebody that wants to give you a lot of money. It's a mutual decision. There's been a lot of back and forth. That SEC is courting UT and OU, and a lot of other conferences are about to step it up right now. I mean, give me a break. Do you not think the new Pac-12 commissioner even mentioned how his job just got a lot more trickier, and that's because they know that they have to make a run at Texas and OU immediately. So, any notion that Texas and OU are begging their way in the SEC is pretty silly.
And what are the added benefits for Texas? I know SEC wants the Dallas and Houston markets, so we can bring that to them. What does Texas get of benefit in this deal from the SEC?
Yeah, the big pluses for Texas are, we're going into an uncertain landscape. They're going to be on solid footing. The SEC is going to be the strongest conference, no matter what happens when it comes to realignment and how the NCAA loses its power, which I think is a huge driver of this. Coupled with NIL, that's when I first started hearing about this. Actually, a couple of months ago, when NIL became a certainty instead of a what if. I think it gives Texas OU just that solid footing in a regional footprint they're familiar with. It helps them combat recruiting issues that they've had. I think it's very silly to think that Texas now all of a sudden is a better option because it's in the SEC. But I'm not the one that's being coveted by all these schools. So it just combats a lot of silly narratives. Some of them true, some of them not. And it gives Texas it's a proactive stance in an uncertain landscape in the coming years. Everybody knows that no matter what happens in college football, that people are going to watch the SEC.
And on the SEC side, they're trying to make moves to become the first super conference, right? And it's absurd. If Texas and OU join the SEC, you pretty much just have Ohio State left. So is that the overarching goal to create the first super conference?
Texas was always going to be the big domino in how this shaped out. It's because the Big 12 was on shaky ground, and Texas comes with so much financial might. So this is the first domino, but obviously the biggest domino. Yeah, and super conferences are what are in mind, and that goes back to the NIL. Nobody has faith in the NCAA outlasting this current iteration of college football. Um, so yeah, now what happens, I don't know. That's going to be really intriguing. It's going to be funny to watch that from the sidelines. um, Ohio State's going to be good, Notre Dame's going to be good. Some of these schools with these massive footprints and traditions are going to be okay. um, but yeah, I'm not sure if I wanted to be some of the other schools out there. There's going to be, let's say there's 4 conferences of 64. There's going to be that 65th school, 66th game that doesn't have our team that doesn't have a play-in game.
It can be a super stressful time for the smaller schools. And then we also hear things about the timeline. We heard that this could be done within 2 weeks, that Texas and OU wouldn't even join until 2025, or it could be next year. So what's the actual timeline looking like for getting the deal done and then playing our first game in the SEC?
Yeah, you know what? I should have some calls today that are going to illuminate that answer better than I can right now. It's not going to be 2025. It's going to be sooner than that. But I have no idea exactly when it's going to be. They're definitely going to start recruiting with ACC in mind. They're going to be selling Arch as the guy that marching Texas into the SEC. Uh, it's going to be sooner than 2025. I don't know exactly when, and that's why my phone will be overheating today.
Cool. And then we hear Texas and OU need 11 out of 14 votes to be included in the SEC. And I would assume that Texas would already have the votes this far along. It would be a major political gaffe if we didn't, and our guys leading this are no political novices. So do you think A&M will be able to pull 3 votes together to block the Texas OU entry, or do you think the hands have already been shaken?
Yeah, I think the die is cast on this. I don't think Texas has the votes, or Texas A&M has the votes it would like to block this. Maybe something really weird happens at the 11th hour, but I don't think that's going to happen. The people I talked to at Texas don't think it's going to happen. What we heard 2 weeks ago was that this would be done in 30 days. What done means is more that there's no turning back. Precarious position right now. There's no turning back for Texas because it's out there, which is what A&M wanted in the first place. I don't think that there's any going back on this. I think it's going to go through, but I can't know that for sure just because there's so many things involved. I can only report what I know from the Texas side as best as I can. Texas side thinks it's going to go through, and I don't think it would have leaked to anybody had it not already been set in motion.
Do you think Texas and OU are going to face repercussions this season on the field? It's going to be a super awkward situation playing in a league that everyone knows we want to leave. Are the refs going to give us any calls this year?
Yeah, the officiating is always bad in the Big 12, but now it's going to be like if the UN and FIFA got together to referee USA soccer in the finals versus China. So I don't. It's not going to go well. It's going to be an ugly, ugly year on the field as far as flags being thrown. I expect Texas to set a record with mysterious holdings and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, the Big 12's always been petulant. There's always shown a giant amount of ingratitude. And Texas, from the Texas perspective, they don't want special favor on the field. They just want it to be called evenly. And there's no way you can watch Texas over the last 5-6 years and say that it's been called evenly.
It's going to be a fun ride, man. And thanks for coming on such short notice to give us the update. It's always appreciated. Make sure to go over to Inside Texas so you can see Eric all the time.
Yeah, find us at InsideTexas.com. We have gigantic moves coming in the next coming weeks. We're very excited to cover this next chapter of Texas football, especially if all this goes through, which as we expect. We have an awesome team, man. Every one of my guys can hold up their own site by themselves, and that's what makes us great. There's a whole lot of back and forth. It really is a team of rivals behind the scenes, and we're trying to become the biggest thing in the history of the market.
All right, that's a wrap for Eric. Thanks again for stopping by for the emergency broadcast. And Inside Texas is going crazy on this story. Multiple posts on the board and new information dropping every couple hours. So they also have reaction quotes from all of our top targets about Texas joining the SEC, and they're really funny quotes and kind of show you how important the SEC is to some of our recruits. So go check that out as well. And watch more of my videos here and consider joining as a channel member. As always, hook 'em.